there, right? But then you find out there's like monumentally many sides. It's like the manifold wisdom of God. And what I realized, the thing that enabled Jesus to love people, you have to look at in terms of what enabled Jesus to rest on the cross. Because that was the demonstration of him loving the world. Right. He rested on the cross. He allowed their death to come to him. And he rested on the cross. And Jesus said that he abided in love. And that's what caused him to love people. Right. And whose love did he abide in? The Father's love. Right. So he abided in the Father and the Father's word to him. And that strengthened him to consider other people's lives over his own. Right? He didn't just, I can look at a bunch of people and think they're beautiful, but if I think I lack life and they come to take my life, I'm going to fight for my life. Sure. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So beauty can only be one side of it. You can love people that you think are beautiful as long as they're not coming to kill you. Or as long as they're not your enemy or hurting you. Sure. Right? But should a person who I think is beautiful now be coming at me as my enemy, coming to steal from me, coming to hurt me, coming to smack me, like he said, coming to kill me, what is it now that's going to strengthen me to still consider or prefer their life over my own, even in that moment? You see, and the thing is finding the report of my life in God and realizing that God is caring for my life and that God has taken my life and hidden it in him, which means my life can't be corrupted by anything anybody does to me. And so now whenever somebody does something to me, I don't look at it as if they're taking away from my life. Because I realized, I asked myself this question: can somebody take something away from the life of God? No. Well, if my life is hidden in him, then that means neither can they take anything away from my life. And you can't bring this forth in yourself, but what I find more and more is I find myself functioning from that place, where I just interpret it that way. I just interpret it when somebody does something to me. I interpret it from the foundation that they can't take away from the life I have in Christ. They can't take away from the life I have in God. So what that does is it frees my mind from being concerned about my needs. It frees my mind from being concerned about what I need. And it frees my mind up to think about the ones who are even hurting me. Yes. And then I can start thinking about, man, what's killing them? How can I help them from what's killing them? Which is where Jesus was on the cross. Look at what's killing them. And then I can set them free from this death by resting on the cross, right? And then the love of God could come out. Yeah. So you have to have both those things going on. You have to be able to see Christ in people, and part of that is seeing that they're beautiful, but part of that is also seeing that they're innocent. Mm-hmm. Meaning you don't judge the thought intents of their heart. Right? Right? Yeah. You see that something's taking them captive and causing them to do things to you they don't want to do. They're innocent. Right? If I get home and my wife has thrown all my clothes out into the front yard, all my expensive, nice clothes I don't even wear anymore because I don't want to mess them up, and they're all in the mud and they've all been stomped on in the mud, okay? I'm gonna initially think to judge her thoughts and intents as being evil. Right? Like, look what she did. I'm going to be angry about it, probably. Right. Yeah. But if I can see that there was somebody at my house with a gun, holding that gun to my wife's head and telling my wife, unless you take all Greg's clothes and go throw them out in the front yard and stomp on them, I'm going to kill you, I wouldn't care that my clothes had been stomped on. I would care that my wife had a gun to her head. Right. See, I'd be thinking about what had her in bondage instead of thinking about my clothes. Right? And so what we don't see, because we only see with our physical eyes instead of seeing with our heart, is we don't see that when people do harmful things to us, they're still innocent. You see, none of us would think my wife's guilty in that situation, would we? No. None of you would think my wife's guilty. You would say, no, she's innocent. A guy had a gun to her head. You see, we don't look at it the same way when people do us harm. We don't look at it as them being taken captive by the serpent's wisdom, making them do things they don't even want to do. We see them as guilty instead of seeing them as innocent. But when I see them as innocent, I become concerned about the bondage they're in instead of the harm they did to me. And then, if I can see they can't take away from my life, for my life's been hidden with God in Christ, then not only am I set free to see them as innocent, I'm set free to not be concerned with my life, but to be concerned with their life. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it means to turn the other cheek. Does that make sense?
I've been a very forgiving person.